Welcome to Mythical Phylogeny Adventurers. I'm your guide Jason. With many fantasy series, there is often a large chunk of the story dedicated to one aspect of being an adventurer. In fact, it takes up about 3/4 of The Hobbit, and the same in Lord of the Rings. But when done in tabletop, it tends to be skipped. What is it? Well, it is the traveling section. You're walking, and you're walking. Oh, and look, some more walking. It is rather mundane and boring. Except while walking, it's a trope that giant monsters attack you. It's dangerous and requires a whole host of changes to adapt to. But there is another form of travel which I want to talk about today. Take a moment and imagine it. You're at the docks. Salt air fills your lungs as you step onto the boat. You and your party are bound for a kingdom across the channel, and this is the shortest route. As you set sail and battle seasickness, things seem fine. Until you hear a thump which reverberates through the whole ship. Everyone looks around as their eyes go wide. Then a tentacle bursts forth and reaches for your masts. What do? And this is the first problem with using ships in a fantasy world. Here there be monsters. Krakens, leviathans, sea serpents, Bakokujira, and more. Yes, they will be a threat. Naval travel was already difficult in our world. You have navigation issues, even using a compass and stars for guidance. There are storms which threaten to capsize you. And then there's things like scurvy. Throw in pirates, and you have yourself a difficult situation to begin with. In fact, at times it was difficult to get enough men to sign up for the several month, if not year-long voyages through such conditions. The British government had to resort to impressment, or literally forcing people to serve on ships by either threats of force and up to imprisonment. Yeah, and things are going to be more difficult in a fantasy world. So let's start with the monsters. You'll need a way to protect your ship. Some way to convince a kraken or leviathan not to drag your ship under. One option is to cover your ship in spikes, which will hurt the monster when they grab your ship, or coat it in a foul-tasting or caustic pitch. There are ways to make it work, and you will. I feel magic will be invaluable here, namely fire and lightning. Just don't set your ship on fire, else you are swimming home. To most aquatic animals, those are the most dangerous things you can unleash. Ice could help to bind them, and it could help keep you afloat, if the ship starts to sink. But there are a few other key spells. Water walking and water breathing would easily top my list. One lets you dive deep to combat your foe, while the other keeps you from drowning. Overall, I think every ship would have their own personal adventurer party or guard team to handle attacking sea monsters. I feel that they would be a more range-focused team, so rangers, mages, clerics, and so on, but limited in rogues and fighters. I don't think they would operate with a tank in their party, but definitely a healer. Those would be needed when it comes to being boarded and having enemies sneak onto your ship. Their preferred method would be to unleash their most powerful attacks before the foe gets in close. Only after it reaches the ship should they even draw their swords. For larger foes, a harpoon is your best option. A paper cut won't stop you, nor would it stop a dragon. Better if you could add some poison or lightning to the attack. Yeah, magic will be helpful. But what will you do after the battle? Has the mast broke? Is the hull still intact? Can you fix it? And this will require you to have the spare parts. Now, shipwrights did do some surprising repairs in our world, and they would do the same in a fantasy world. Do they have a spare mast? Or can they make do with the cells that remain? What about the torn ones? Someone has to sew them all back together. There will be plenty of busy work. Maybe you could do some repairs using magic. Grow a new mast with a druid? Is that even possible on a ship? Well, maybe. I'll get to that when I touch on food. You might need to change what the ship is made out of. Metal isn't known for floating too well, but we do it in our world. And I think that a fantasy navy might want to also. It will help keep the ship from taking so much damage in battle. Of course, magical woods would be important. Reinforcing the bottom will be critical, since that is where most attacks will be coming from, where you can't see them. You may have noticed, When I talked about battles, there was one thing I didn't go over: smaller foes. What about things like a battle with merfolk? And this gets interesting, for we have two major options. Aggressive and, well, I'm going to call it utilitarian or pragmatic. Let's start with the less aggressive version. This could either be peaceful or antagonistic. Now, in our world, a nation can't really own the ocean. Oh, some claim to, but do fail. But here, there is a race which can really own the ocean. The merfolk could create walls and cities. And what happens when your ship sails into their waters? Well, it could be the same thing as bringing a caravan into another nation, which brings up a whole host of issues. Do they have contraband? Things which they don't want brought into their country. Will they do a search and seizure of your ship and goods? Possibly. But will they have taxes and tariffs that you will have to pay to ship your goods through their domain? And this could easily get expensive when you have multiple nations to cross. Yet, it isn't all bad. This opens up trade routes. You carry it so far, then sell it to a merfolk merchant, who then transports it underwater to the next terrestrial nation. This could cut into your profits, but reduces the danger, so it might be a better deal. It also might be possible to hire merfolk guards to protect your ship. Who is better to protect a ship at sea than those that live at sea? Of course, could they keep up with your ship? Maybe. If they can stay on land, they could easily come on board and ride with you. But what about the more aggressive variants? Well, let's start with them not being hostile to humans. Wait, didn't I just say that I was going to talk about the aggressive ones? Yes, I did. But humans aren't the only thing to be aggressive with. Like, say, other merfolk? Yes, they can war with each other, just like humans do on the surface. So, under this condition, they aren't concerned with humans. But we all know what happens to bystanders in wars. They get caught up in it. Oh, he's a spy. They're funneling supplies to the enemy. Yeah, you'll get accused of aiding the enemy to be sure. Yet if you are clever, I'm sure that you could sail to both sides. Or could pick one. That'll be your choice. Yet regardless, it is likely that you'll get dragged in and then down. Once more, their attacks will come from your ship's blind spot, from below. This is a bad situation for a fight. You'll need to exploit the same spells and tactics as with the Kraken. Yet they are smart, and that is where things get complicated. I wouldn't put it past them to attempt to cut a hole in your ship to strike from below. Once there is a hull breach, you'll sink, and it'll be hard to plug one. Again, this is why I want to reinforce the hull. But they'll employ magic, so you'll need to handle that. Yet I do have an absolutely brilliant solution to much of this. And that is to use magic to make your ship fly. An airship. Hey, this is a fantasy world, so why not fly? Use a levitation spell to hoist your ship into the air. Now you don't have to worry about attacks from underwater. Instead, you float high above it all. And you can escape dangerous waves and storms. Sure, you'd have to go higher than the clouds, but that isn't bad. Okay, sure, a dragon could still swoop down on you, but that could happen even while floating. That is unavoidable. But it isn't all bad. No, there are a few benefits to sailing in a fantasy world. There are plenty of ways to employ magic to aid you. First up, simple healing spells to stop seasickness. That will make it much easier for anyone venturing across the ocean. Yet divination spells to help track your ship, thus you won't get lost at sea. And that is insanely critical to be sure. Now, I mentioned using a druid to grow a new mast when destroyed. Yet there is a reason I want a garden on the ship. I'm sure you've all heard of scurvy, a disease which results from malnutrition and vitamin C deficiency. And certain foods were important, namely limes. With the druid, you can grow them and other foods. This means that you'll keep your crew healthier, and no one can complain about having a wider variation in their diet. Yet, there is another group of spells which druids often have, and those are weather spells. Even simple ones, to create wind, are important here. Now, you can't control which way the wind blows, and that means you can improve your propulsion and mobility. No longer will you be dead in the water when the wind dies. Throw in spells to control and command animals that can further aid you in dealing with sea monsters. tell them to leave, and then you aren't in a fight. Yeah, a druid on a ship might be the most important crew member. Wouldn't you agree? Overall, I think that the dangers might outweigh the benefits when it comes to seafaring. This is the terrain which is openly hostile to humans, and it is already in the control of a race which thrives in it. Throw in the dangers of monsters, and honestly, I feel like those willing to travel the ocean may plummet. Once more, impressment might be necessary if you wish to explore the oceans of a fantasy world. If not, ships may be crewed by only adventurers. What do you think? Would you agree with my assessment? Thank you for watching. Please return next time. Until then, I'll see you on the roads.